The Burmese ruby does not tolerate haste. It demands respect, a steady hand, and a light that does not lie. I was sitting at my workbench in the small, high-ceilinged apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Outside, a late February wind hurled sleet against the tall windows like angry handfuls of gravel. The sound was constant, almost comforting in its persistence. Inside the circle of warm light from my old brass desk lamp, everything was in perfect order. Before me lay a 10th century necklace that had once belonged to a minor Burmese princess, part of the private heritage collection my late husband, Edward, had spent 30 years assembling. The stones were dark, almost black in ordinary light, obsidian pretending to be something more noble. But the moment I tilted the pendant just so, catching the beam at precisely the right angle, a violent red fire ignited deep inside each ruby, pigeon blood red, the kind of color that makes collectors stop breathing for a second. I picked up my tweezers. My hands did not shake. At 64, my fingers remained as precise as they had been at 20, back when I first started sweeping the floors in old Silas Montgomery's workshop on 47th Street. I could still hear his gravelly voice. "Girl, if your hand trembles even a 16th of an inch, the stone knows, and it will punish you." The silence in the apartment was thick, almost architectural. 3 years of it, most people would have called it loneliness. A poor, abandoned mother whose only child had cut her out of his life. I did not need their pity. To me, that silence was a gift. It meant the absence of lies. 3 years earlier, Marcus had stopped speaking to me. The reason was as simple as it was vulgar. He had opened a luxury car dealership in Greenwich with money. I had loaned him my money. Edward's insurance money, the last of the liquid assets we had after Edward's long illness. I had watched him furnish the showroom with Italian leather chairs, hire models to stand beside the cars at openings, lease a fleet of demonstration vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. And then I watched him sink it, methodically, with vanity disguised as business decisions. The final argument had been ugly. He stood in this very living room, red-faced, shouting that the collection was dead capital, that I was sitting on a chest of gold, like a dog in the manger while his empire crumbled. I had answered calmly, the way one answers a child having a tantrum. "An empire built on someone else's money is going to crumble anyway, Marcus." He had slammed the door so hard, the crystal in the cabinet rattled for a full 10 seconds. Since then, not a call, not a text, not even a postcard with a printed "Happy Birthday, Mom." And you know what? I had breathed easier. The constant tension left my shoulders. I stopped flinching every time the phone rang, no longer expecting another emergency wire transfer, another story about cash flow problems, another plea wrapped in guilt. I simply worked. I knew the value of labor. For 40 years, I had breathed the metallic dust of grinding wheels, squinted through loops until my eyes burned, learned to feel a stone's character with my fingertips before. I even looked at it under magnification, all so that Marcus could have the best private schools, the Ivy League degree, the debt-free start in life. The more I gave, the wider the abyss of his appetite grew. The doorbell sliced through the silence like a scalpel. I set the tweezers down carefully, wiped my hands on the soft chamois cloth, and walked to the door. A delivery man stood on the threshold, soaked and scowling under the building's awning. In his arms was an enormous bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers, or the flowers guilty husbands send when they've been caught. I signed the electronic pad with my usual neat signature, closed the door, and carried the heavy arrangement to the workbench. The scent was suffocatingly sweet, almost chemical. Nestled among the stems was an envelope, thick, cream-colored paper with embossed edges, the kind that costs $5 a sheet. Marcus's new life in stationery form. I slid it open with the thin blade I use for trimming setting wax. The card inside was handwritten. "Mom, let's forget the past. I was wrong. Come over for dinner tonight. I want to show you the house and make peace. Brianna is making duck. We will be waiting at 7. Love, Marcus." My professional eye caught it immediately. The paper was expensive, the embossing real gold leaf. But the writing was done with a cheap ballpoint pen, the kind that costs 99 cents at a drugstore. The ink had smeared in 3 places, tiny blue comet tails where the writer's hand had trembled or pressed too hard. Heavy, nervous pressure. The letters leaned forward aggressively, as though the person writing them was leaning over the page in desperation. Dissonance. In jewelry, if the setting is platinum, but the stone is mounted sloppily, it is almost certainly fake, or at least compromised. Life follows the same logic. The invitation looked expensive, but it felt cheap, Forced. He did not want reconciliation. He needed something, and he needed it urgently. I looked at the clock on the wall. 5:12 p.m., 2 hours and 48 minutes until 7. I did not rush to choose an outfit or fix my hair. Instead, I walked to the bedroom closet and selected a sharp charcoal pantsuit. Elegant. Understated, practical. The jacket had deep pockets and a structured shoulder that made me look taller. More commanding. I was not dressing for a family celebration. I was dressing for negotiation. Or confrontation. Next, the safe. Built into the wall behind a false panel of bookshelves, it opened with my fingerprint and a 6-digit code that changed every 90 days. Inside, among the velvet trays of rings, necklaces, and loose stones, sat a small black velvet box. My primary defense, a jeweler's loupe, 10-power magnification, the same model. I had carried since 1987. I never left home without it when I expected to handle stones. Or people who liked to throw dust in my eyes. I hesitated, then reached deeper into the safe. My intuition, honed by 4 decades of risk. Assessment spoke quietly but insistently. Marcus had gone silent for 3 years. The real estate market was trembling. Rumors about his dealership had been circulating again. Late payments to suppliers, repossessed demo cars, whispers of second mortgages. And now this sudden invitation. I pulled out a heavy velvet pouch from the very back. Inside lay a single stone, an emerald replica. I had grown myself in a hydrothermal chamber years ago for a museum exhibit. A perfect double of the 22-carat solstice. Emerald from Edward's collection. To the untrained eye, or even to a wealthy amateur, it was magnificent, deep green, excellent clarity, expert cut. To a real gemologist with proper equipment, it was worthless lab-grown glass. I weighed the pouch in my palm. If they were expecting me to arrive with a dowry, a peace offering, a bribe to buy back my son's affection, I would not disappoint them. Let them think I was ready to pay for love. Let them underestimate me. I placed the pouch beside the loop in my structured leather purse. The clasp clicked shut with the sound of a pistol being cocked. The drive to Greenwich took just under an hour. The elite suburb looked exactly as I remembered it from the few times Marcus had allowed me to visit before the silence began. High iron fences, security cameras swiveling like watchful birds, perfectly cleared roads even in sleet, houses that resembled modern art museums more than homes. No coziness, only the cold glint of money that had not yet been fully laundered into respectability. I pulled up to the gated entrance of the neighborhood. The guard glanced at his list, nodded lazily, and waved me through without a word. Marcus's house sat at the very end of the cul-de-sac, pompous cube of concrete, glass and steel. Every window blazed with light, creating the illusion of warmth and celebration. Floor-to-ceiling glass gave the impression that the entire interior was on display, like a dollhouse for very rich adults. But something else caught my attention. 2 houses down, parked in the shadow of tall pines, sat a black sedan, spotless despite the slush-covered roads. Windows tinted pitch black, no license plates, no chrome accents, no identifying marks at all. I knew that type of car. In the New York jewelry world, there are 2 sides. The white side, boutiques on Madison, auctions at Sotheby's, private viewings with champagne. And the gray side, pawn shops on the outer boroughs, back rooms of restaurants, hotel suites rented by the hour. Men who buy jewelry from people in trouble for 25 cents on the dollar. I had seen that exact car, or one identical to it, 6 months earlier, parked outside the office of a notorious middleman everyone called the Vulture. Victor Cross, he specialized in distressed assets. If he was here, in this residential cul-de-sac, on the night my son invited me to dinner after 3 years of silence. This was not reconciliation. This was an ambush. I killed the engine, but did not get out immediately. I sat in the dark cabin, leather-gloved hands still on the wheel, staring at the glowing windows of the house that was supposed to be my son's new life. The puzzle pieces were falling into place with chilling clarity, cheap ballpoint on expensive paper. A sudden invitation after 3 years, a black sedan belonging to a man who only appears when something valuable is dying. My breathing remained even. My heart did not race. Instead, it slowed into the cold, concentrated rhythm I recognized from every major transaction of my career. The moment before you tell a client their stone is not what they think it is. I took one deep breath, adjusted my coat collar against the freezing air, and opened the car door. I was not going to see my son. I was going to war. I walked up the wide marble steps, feeling the graveyard, chill seep through the soles of my boots. Each step was deliberate, measured. The same pace I used when approaching a client who was about to hear bad. news about their heirloom sapphire. The front door swung open before my finger even touched the bell. It was not Marcus. It was not Brianna. It was Esther, the woman who had cleaned my apartment twice a week for 10 years until Marcus borrowed her services 3 years ago, with promises of double pay and health insurance. Promises I was certain he never kept for more than the first month. Her face was pale as new linen. Her hands twisted the edge of her apron like she was trying to wring water from it. Her eyes darted past me toward the glowing windows of the living room. "Mrs. Lowry," she said, much too loudly, stepping forward to take my coat. "We are so happy to see you." As she reached for the cashmere lapels, her fingers closed around my forearm, hard, almost bruising. She leaned in under the pretense of adjusting my collar, and her whisper hit like a suppressed gunshot. "Do not go in there. There are guests inside you should not see. Run, Mrs. Lowry, for God's sake! Leave right now." Everything inside me locked into place. Not fear, not panic, just the soft metallic click of a bolt sliding home. I did not flinch. My face remained soft, polite, the face of a mother who has finally been invited back into the fold. I held Esther's gaze for the briefest second. Terror swam in her eyes, genuine and raw. She was risking everything, her job, possibly her safety, to give me this warning. I gave her the tiniest nod, almost imperceptible. "Thank you, Esther," I said in a clear, carrying voice meant for anyone listening from the hallway. "I think I forgot the gift in the car. I'll be right back." I turned on my heel with the same graceful pivot I used when walking away from a bad deal. Calm, unhurried. No victim ever runs. Victims run. Predators walk. I descended the steps without looking back, feeling eyes on me from the living room window. Multiple pairs, I was sure. I kept my posture relaxed, my stride even, as though I had genuinely left behind a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine. Once I reached the car, I slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and reversed slowly, headlights off. 50 yards later, I pulled behind a thick wall of decorative evergreens, perfect cover, yet still offering a clean line of sight to the front of the house. I killed the engine. The interior plunged into darkness. From the glove compartment, I retrieved not chocolates, but a pair of marine binoculars, compact, nitrogen-purged, excellent low-light performance. An old appraiser's habit, sometimes you need to read a building plaque or inspect. A facade seal from across the street without leaving your vehicle. I pressed the eyepieces to my face and adjusted the focus. The living room curtains were wide open. Another sign of arrogance. They were so certain the plan would unfold smoothly that they hadn't bothered with privacy. 9 minutes. That was how long I sat in the icy silence, watching the house that should have been filled with family, warmth, but had instead become a stage set for betrayal. At the 9th minute, the massive oak door opened. A man stepped onto the porch in his shirt sleeves despite the frost. He lit a cigarette with quick, greedy motions, cupping the flame against the wind. Even without magnification, I would have recognized that slumped silhouette, the way he held the cigarette between thumb and forefinger like a dart ready to throw. Victor Cross, the vulture, a man through whose hands had passed tons of stolen gold, conflict diamonds, and distressed estate jewelry. If he was standing on my son's porch smoking while waiting for me to arrive, this was no longer about family dinner. It was about a transaction. And the merchandise was supposed to be me, or rather, what I carried in my safe, what I knew the combinations to, what I could be coerced into handing over. My breathing stayed level. Anger did not rise. What filled me instead was absolute cold, like liquid nitrogen, poured over every unnecessary emotion. It burned away hesitation, pity, hope. What remained was pure essence, calculation. Marcus appeared next. My son, the boy I once read fairy tales to until he fell asleep against my shoulder. The teenager I bailed out of minor troubles with quiet checks and quieter lectures, stepped onto the porch beside a career criminal and smiled. I adjusted the focus. He was laughing, gesturing expansively as though boasting about a successful hunt. Then he reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and withdrew a thick yellow envelope. He handed it to the vulture with casual confidence. The man glanced inside, smirked, and gave Marcus a patronizing pat on the shoulder, the way a master rewards. An obedient dog. That single gesture was the final fracture. The envelope contained either a down payment, transfer documents, or worse, my personal information, bank details, safe combinations, vault access protocols. Marcus had already sold me out before I even crossed the threshold. He was celebrating premature victory, certain his aging mother would crumble at the sight of lilies and the word mom. They thought I was sentimental, weak, an old woman, whose love was a lever they could pull. They had forgotten who taught them the difference between a real diamond and cubic. Zirconia under cross-polarized light. They had forgotten I could read people with the same clarity I read stones. I lowered the binoculars. The decision crystallized in a single heartbeat. There was no more doubt. No lingering, motherly hope. No possibility of misunderstanding. In that instant, Marcus ceased to be my son. He became an opponent. Dangerous, unprincipled, but above all, predictable. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed bright against the dark dashboard. I did not call the police. Police need statements, probable cause, time. I needed speed and precision. I dialed Leo Thorne. Leo, former high-stakes insurance investigator, now head of security for one of the largest jewelry syndicates in the Northeast. 30 years of friendship. The only man in the business who understood that trust is worth more than the purest Golconda diamond. The phone rang 4 times. Eleanor? His voice was raspy, surprised. Do you know what time it is? I know, Leo. I need your help right now. Write this down. I rattled off the description of the black sedan. No plates. Make and model as best I could recall, distinguishing scratch along the rear fender I had noticed earlier. Find the owner and see who in the city is looking to liquidate large emeralds, fast. A pause. Then alarm crept into his tone. Eleanor, what have you gotten yourself into? Not me, Leo, my son. He just signed a contract with the devil, and I'm about to cancel it. I hung up. My hand moved to the glove compartment again. Beside the binoculars lay a professional digital recorder the size of a thumb drive. I checked the battery, full, then slipped it into my jacket's inner pocket. Now I was armed. I shifted into gear, but did not drive away from the neighborhood. Instead, I turned toward the exit, moving slowly. Headlights still off until I cleared the gate. I needed time. I needed distance. I needed a place from which I could strike cleanly. 2 miles down the highway sat a 24-hour diner. Attached to a gas station, bright neon, featureless, sterile. The perfect place to disappear in plain sight. I parked at the far end of the lot, back to the wall, face to the entrance. Inside, I chose a corner booth, ordered black tea, no sugar. When the waitress left, I placed my phone face down on the scarred Formica table. The first move was already in play. The call to Leo had started an unstoppable mechanism. But mechanisms need fuel. Guesses are for amateurs. Professionals work with evidence. The phone vibrated after 4 minutes. Leo, fast as ever. Eleanor. No sleepiness now, only tension. You hit the nail. That sedan appeared on cameras outside a pawn shop in Hunts Point last week. The vulture is in deep. He owes Chicago money, serious people. Deadline is end of the week. And what does he need? Large stones, liquid, emeralds over 10 carats, clean, Colombian or Zambian preferred. Rumor is he's already found a seller who promised him the solstice emerald. I froze. The solstice. 22 carats. Perfect clarity. Never for sale. Never even photographed in the last 5 years. Only a handful of people knew it existed, and Marcus was one of them. He sold something he doesn't have, I said quietly. Looks like it. Eleanor, if Victor doesn't get that stone tonight, he won't care whose fault it is. He'll take what he wants by force. Go home. Lock the doors. I'll send people. No, Leo, not yet. I need to know everything first. I ended the call. The mosaic was sharpening. Marcus hadn't just wanted money. He was desperate. He had promised a gangster a stone from my vault to save his own skin. The dinner wasn't reconciliation. It was the final roll of the dice. But one question remained. How did he plan to get into the safe? The biometrics were mine. The override keys were always on my person. Unless a chill traced my spine. I dialed the security firm that monitored my shop and private vault. Dispatch, Miller speaking. Terrence, it's Eleanor Lowry. Mrs. Lowry, everything okay? The alarm is quiet. I know, just checking logs. Who entered the shop after hours in the last 3 days? Keyboard taps. Yesterday, nothing. Day before. Oh, it was you, ma'am. 9:40 p.m. You called ahead? Said you were coming with the notary to sign lease documents. The world tilted. 2 nights ago at 9:40, I had been home, alone, watching an old Audrey Hepburn film and drinking chamomile. I was not there, Terrence. Silence. Describe what I looked like. Same as always. Coat, hat, dark glasses. Scarf wrapped high. Said you had a toothache. Could barely talk. The notary did most of the speaking. Toothache. Scarf to the nose. Dark glasses. Classic disguise. A voice can be mimicked with software or old recordings. A woman who looked enough like me from a distance. They hadn't just planned to steal a stone. They had already stolen access. I closed my eyes for one measured breath. Terrence. Who was the notary? Julian Vance, license on file. I knew Julian. Scrawny, nervous boy from Marcus's high school math class. Marcus had let him copy homework. Julian had shielded him from bullies. Old debts being repaid in forgery and fraud. Thank you, Terrence. I hung up. The anger was gone now, replaced by crystalline clarity. This was not mere betrayal. This was attempted annihilation. They planned to strip me of everything: shop, apartment, cottage, collection. Then, likely, have me declared incompetent. Or simply make me vanish quietly into a care facility while they sold off the pieces. I took a sip of the cold tea. It tasted like iron. They thought me helpless, senile, easy. They had sat down to play chess with a pigeon. They were wrong. I was a grandmaster. And they did not even know the rules. I gave them 30 more minutes. 30 minutes for the nerves to fray. For the vulture to grow impatient. For Marcus to start sweating through his expensive shirt. For Brianna to hiss accusations under her breath. 30 minutes for the duck to grow cold and the wine to turn bitter in their glasses. 30 minutes for arrogance to curdle into panic. Then I started the engine. The highway unrolled beneath the tires like black ribbon. I drove calmly, obeying every limit, every signal. No need to hurry now. The trap was already sprung. They were standing inside it with both feet. All that remained was to pull the string. Before turning back toward the gated suburb, I made one final stop, a deserted side road 2 miles from the entrance. I pulled the tablet from my purse. Marcus had always mocked me for clinging to old-century tools, like loops and scales, never realizing I had quietly embraced the new when it served me. 2 years earlier, I had paid a discreet cybersecurity firm to install a remote access backdoor into the shop's server. Not even the head accountant knew it existed. I entered the password now. The screen bloomed to life. I navigated to the document registry and filtered for uploads in the last 48 hours. There it was. A file innocently named Security Agreement Scan. I opened it. The document loaded slowly, as though reluctant to confess. When the text finally appeared, my breath caught, not from fear, but from the sheer naked cynicism of it. It was not a simple sale of the shop, as I had first assumed. It was a loan agreement, monstrous, predatory, interest, 20% per month. The lender, a Cayman-registered shell company. I knew exactly who hid behind such vehicles. Gray money, mob money, laundered through real estate until it smelled clean. The collateral section made my jaw tighten. Not just the Fifth Avenue shop. My Upper West Side apartment. The cottage in the Hamptons where Edward and I had spent our last quiet summers. Even the garage holding his old Volvo. The one I still drove because it smelled faintly of his aftershave. Everything I owned had been mortgaged. The first payment was due in 48 hours from signing. Miss it, and ownership transferred automatically. No court, no appeal via executive notary order. The notary, Julian Vance. 48 hours would expire tomorrow morning at 9:40 a.m. I scrolled to the signature page. There, beside the florid scrawl of the creditor's representative, was my name, Eleanor A. Lowry. Perfect, too perfect. The loop on the capital E, the sharp final downstroke, the slight rightward slant, every quirk of my hand reproduced with forensic accuracy. No amateur forgery could achieve that. I opened my phone's photo gallery. Scrolled to an archived folder from 5 years ago, Marcus's 30th birthday. I had given him a Patek Philippe and a large handmade card on which I wrote a long, heartfelt message and signed my full name with solemn love. I zoomed in on the signature. Identical. They had not copied it. They had scanned my birthday wish, the one filled with pride and hope for his future, cut out the signature, and pasted it into a document designed to erase my life. Something inside me died in that moment. The last small ember of maternal hope that perhaps he was coerced, that somewhere inside still lived the boy I raised, turned to ash. What remained was scorched clarity. I was no longer a mother. I was a jeweler examining a fatally flawed stone. When a crack runs too deep to repair, you do not polish around it. You split the stone to save what still holds value. Marcus and Brianna were the crack. I forwarded the file to Leo with a single line. They mortgaged everything. Deadline tomorrow. Proceed with Plan Hurricane. His reply was instant. Copy, team moving. Awaiting your signal. I tucked the tablet away. Checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Steel gray eyes stared back. No tears, no tremble, only cold precision. I shifted into gear. 5 minutes to the house. I was not going to dinner. I was going to an execution. The gates opened silently, as though the property itself welcomed its destroyer. I parked beside Marcus's gleaming SUV. The Vulture's black sedan was absent, likely, hidden in the garage now that the guest of honor had arrived. I stepped out, slipped the velvet pouch containing the fake emerald into my coat pocket, and arranged my face, soft smile, Slightly misty eyes, shoulders gently rounded. The mask of the forgiving mother. The door opened before I reached it. Marcus rushed forward, arms wide. "Mom!" He hugged me too tightly, cologne sharp and desperate. I let him. I could smell the fear rolling off him in waves. Finally. We were so worried. "I'm sorry, honey," I murmured, patting his back. Old age is no picnic. That tire business turned me around. Brianna hovered behind him, poured into a tight dress, smile not reaching her eyes. "Mrs. Lowry, we're so glad. Come in, you must be freezing. Everything's ready." They led me into the dining room. The table was set with ostentatious luxury, crystal, silver, flickering candles. The duck sat in the center, skin crisp, sauce glistening. Only 3 place settings. The vulture was not dining with us. He waited in the shadows for his cut. The performance was for me alone. Marcus poured wine I barely sipped. Brianna asked after my health, the weather, mutual acquaintances long dead.
Sickening courtesy.
Then Marcus set down his fork. "Mom," he said, voice dropping to intimate softness. He covered my hand with his. "I've been a fool these last 3 years. I regret it so much. Brianna and I realize family is everything. Money comes and goes, but we only have one mother." Brianna dabbed dry eyes with a napkin. "Yes, Mrs. Lowry, we want to start fresh." I looked at them and felt only disgust. They were using the word mother like a crowbar. "I've been thinking too," I said, letting my voice tremble just enough. I was too strict. "Money, stones, what good are they in the grave? I want to see you happy." Marcus's pupils dilated. A predator's glint. I reached into my purse slowly, fingers trembling on purpose. I drew out the velvet pouch and placed it on the table with a soft thud. Silence fell, thick as velvet. I untied the drawstring and tipped the contents into my palm. The fake solstice emerald caught the chandelier light and exploded. Into green fire, deep, saturated, hypnotic. Brianna exhaled. "My God." Marcus froze, mental calculator whirring. Millions, debts cleared, freedom. "This is the solstice," he whispered. "You're giving it to us?" "Take it," I said softly. "Sell it, buy a bigger house, pay your loans, live in peace. I only want you happy." Brianna's hand shot out. She gripped the stone until her knuckles whitened. Marcus stood. I completely forgot. We're low on wine. Vintage bottle in the office, just for tonight. I'll grab it." He held out his hand. Brianna dropped the emerald into his palm without hesitation. He left the room almost at a run. I turned to Brianna, who was already glowing, chattering about resorts and new jewelry. "Dear," I interrupted sweetly, "could you pour me some water? My throat is dry from all the excitement." "Of course." She hurried to the kitchen. The instant she was gone, I pulled out my phone, started recording video, placed it at the table's edge, half hidden by a napkin. Then I rose quietly and moved to the hallway door. From the office at the far end came voices, first low, then rising. Marcus excited, boastful. The vulture rumbling. Then a fist slamming wood. I returned to my seat 1 second before Brianna reappeared with the water glass. She poured, beaming. I took a sip. "Brianna," I said pleasantly, "I've been thinking about the shop. Maybe it's time I retire." She froze, glass trembling. "Of course, Mrs. Lowry. It's long past time you rested. Why deal with the dust? Marcus and I will take care of everything. Modernize it." "Modernize it?" I echoed. "Like the mortgage you arranged yesterday? 20% interest a month?" The smile vanished. Wine splashed onto the cloth in a red stain. "What are you talking about?" "The loan agreement, dear. Where you mortgaged my shop, my apartment, my cottage. The forged signature you copied from my birthday card to Marcus." She paled. Eyes darted for escape. Marcus was gone. She was alone. It was for your own good," she blurted. "You're sitting on millions doing nothing. We need to grow. Marcus is brilliant. He's just had bad luck. We were going to pay it all back." "Pay it back?" I smiled thinly. "By mortgaging my life to gangsters? You never planned to repay anything. You planned to sell me off in pieces. What does it matter?" She shrieked, mask gone. "It's all going to Marcus eventually. You're old. You don't need anything. We just accelerated the inevitable." Under the napkin, the red recording light blinked steadily. Confession captured. "Thank you, Brianna," I said calmly. "You explained everything clearly." I glanced at my watch, 9:05. I sent Leo a single word, stone. The tactical signal, a crash from the office, chair toppling, glass shattering, Marcus screaming. "What did you try to hand me, you little shit?" Brianna jumped up. What is that?" I stood slowly, stopped the recording, sent the file. Then I called Leo. "It's time. Armed criminal inside. Life in danger. Move in." Sirens rose in the distance. Blue and red lights cut the night. I walked toward the office. Marcus's scream continued. It's her! She set me up! She gave me the fake. I pushed the door open. The scene was squalid. Marcus pinned face down on the desk by one of the vulture's men. The vulture stood over him, clutching the velvet pouch, shards of a wine bottle and the fake emerald glittering on the floor. He turned as I entered. Who the hell are you, lady? I am a jeweler, I said quietly. And this is my son, to whom I gave a family keepsake 30 minutes ago. A symbol of reconciliation. Marcus twisted. You said it was the solstice. You said it was worth millions. I said it was a gift, Marcus. I said let the collection serve the family. I did not tell you to sell it to a criminal while I sat drinking water at your table. The vulture stepped closer. The stone is junk. The debt stands, and now it's higher. Sign everything over, or I take your son's... The front door exploded inward. Special ops? Everybody down! Hands behind heads. Black-clad figures flooded the room, rifles up. Leo entered last, calm in his civilian coat. Victor Cross, he said. Attempted fraud, extortion, trafficking. You're done. Handcuffs clicked. Marcus was hauled up, suit ruined, face gray. Mom, he whispered, tears streaming. Mommy, tell them it's a mistake. I'm your son. Help me. I walked to him, unfolded the printed mortgage agreement, held it up. This is the mistake, I said. Forging my signature. Mortgaging the home you grew up in. Risking your father's legacy. He stared, color draining. I would have paid it back. No, Marcus. You would have sold me too, if the price was right. I turned to the lead detective. Officer, here is my statement. Fraud, forgery, attempted grand larceny. Evidence attached. Agreement, notary video, audio confession from his wife. I will testify. Marcus screamed as they led him away. Brianna tried to slip past. I had nothing to do with this. I'm the victim. Leo held up the agreement. Your signature as witness. Take her. When the room emptied, only Leo and I remained amid the wreckage. He placed a hand on my shoulder. You okay, Eleanor? I picked up the fake emerald from the floor. Intact. Good glass. I just did inventory, I said, and wrote off the dead stock. Spring arrived early that year. Sunlight flooded my Fifth Avenue workshop, bright and merciless. I sat at my bench, a 3-carat diamond in my tweezers. A commission for a young soprano. The stone was fine. The setting needed refinement. I loved this work. The smell of polish, the quiet chime of metal yielding to skill. The trials ended a month later. The mortgage voided as fraudulent. Property returned. Marcus sentenced to 5 years. Brianna, 3 years probation, travel ban, heavy fine after cooperating. I did not attend the sentencing. I had already passed judgment. Last week, I sold the real solstice emerald at auction in London. The proceeds funded a scholarship for young women jewelers. Talented, driven but without means. Let them build empires from nothing, as I had. The workshop was quiet now. No calls demanding money. No lies dressed as love. I set down my file, lifted my tea, Earl Grey, hot, fragrant. My gaze fell on the black and white photo on the shelf. Me at 25, stained apron, eyes alight outside my first tiny workshop. I smiled at her. We made it. We took our life back. I raised the loupe to my eye. The diamond was flawless. Perfect transparency. The world at last in sharp focus. And it was beautiful.